Welcome to Setting the Table, hosted by Robin B., where we bring you the insider scoop from top restaurateurs, industry experts, and creative minds who know what it takes to stand out and succeed. Hungry for insights on how to fuel your growth and stay ahead of the curve? You've just found your secret ingredient.
Hi, everybody. This is Robin B. Welcome to our first podcast. It's a super exciting day. This is our first go at it, so please be a little forgiving. We'll do our best to do a good job. And I have an awesome guest, so I am excited to introduce Erica Hernandez. Erica is a Cypress, Texas-based photographer, media expert, and she has a company called Foxtail Family Photography. Erica has over 15 years of experience in media. She has done pretty much it all as an editor. She's been a writer, she's been a reporter, she's actually been on camera, or I guess voice behind the scenes, in some great YouTube elements. She has done photography, and I've worked with her for years on photography and videography for restaurants in particular. So I'm super excited to have her here today. Welcome, Erica.
Hey, that was a great introduction. Very gracious. Thank you so much, Robin. I'm excited to be your first person and sort of the guinea pig here, which I enjoy kind of building the plane as we fly it. And I'm excited though to share what I know about photography and video and media, just branding and some strategy in general. Yeah, I've done a ton of different things in different industries, and really enjoyed the work that we've gotten to do over the years for restaurant owners and helping them get noticed and get seen.
Yeah, and I think you do an excellent job of like showcasing what they do uniquely and telling their story. I mean, give us a little bit of your background though. Like, let's start with kind of, you've had really an interesting history in the media area.
Yeah, so I've been involved in media really my entire life. I mean, I was writing for my high school newspaper, and in college I wrote and I took pictures and had a column. And when I graduated, I started working for one of the oldest family-owned newspapers in the state of Texas. It's in Victoria, Texas. Worked there for a couple years, and at the time they were really at the forefront of newspaper / multimedia content creation.
Right.
We were all given cameras as print reporters. We were given cameras to go out and take pictures of the wildfire that happened, or city council, or whatever it was. So that was really kind of where I cut my teeth in creating content, in both written and taking pictures. And we also had to appear on camera for a webcast that we did, which was a pretty big deal back in 2009, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun. So that was kind of the start of my love for all of these things. My first love being the written word and print. After that, I went and I worked in Orlando, Florida for a while for another daily newspaper called the Orlando Sentinel. Was there around the time of the Casey Anthony trial was going on, and the Trayvon Martin tragedy.
That was interesting.
Yeah, it was a very interesting time for news. There's always something to be covered in Florida. I mean, crazy, alligator bite stories, guy lost at sea, and crazy, just always something in Florida, like the just never-ending mill of stories. But there as well, we were relied upon to take pictures and write. So I kind of delved deeper into doing both of those. And then after that, I taught middle school at an inner city school for a while. I left the news world because it was in such flux, really experiencing a lot of growing pains and trying to communicate effectively with audiences and people's ever shrinking attention spans. And news still does face that challenge. I think
we all do with media, right?
As we all do in media now. What I tell a lot of businesses now is we all have to become our own media companies. It's no longer effective to just get a media appearance on News 13 on the local news, or
For sure.
You know, or wait for those magazine features to happen. You've got to create your own content that puts you in the spotlight. That
and you
makes
can
you a hero of your own story.
I mean, that's actually what's so amazing is you actually can. Like there was years ago. I look at like the kids today. You know, kids, but the younger generations, like they don't even know what it was like not to be able to post themselves all over the internet. And maybe that's not always a good thing, but. That wasn't an option. You know, there was none of that, 25 plus years ago. Right. So it's like, you know, that's a whole new deal. And now the opportunity is just amazing.
It's everywhere. There's opportunity to really put a spotlight on yourself everywhere. And it can be very overwhelming.
For sure.
And within my, I experienced that phenomenon as well. I work for some of the most watched YouTubers in the world called Ryan's Toy Review. It's a kids channel that where I helped grow some of their content, a specific channel from 0 to 900,000 subscribers. Did everything on there from being behind the scenes to being in front of the camera to writing.
I remember that. That's when you and I met right after you left that, and it was amazing what you did.
It was the wild web at the time. That was I would say 2017, 2018. The world just was a different place. The media world was a different place, and things have changed so quickly. TikTok wasn't as big of a deal. YouTube, you were still able to go viral like pretty easily. Well, at least for the folks who I was working for, going viral was a common thing, a common occurrence, and a part of it.
Competition wasn't as fierce yet. There weren't as many people doing it. I mean, it was just so you kind of got in on the ground floor of that whole.
Yeah. It was really, really cool to watch, to kind of combine all of that. My experience working with kids as a teacher, and then all of my experience as media and creating kids viral media content. So it was really cool. But after that, I wanted to take a step back and work for enterprises who may not have the resources to understand how to leverage media. So your local mom and pops businesses, and particularly those who are our neighborhood favorite hangout spots, like restaurants or coffee shops, or different folks in our community who need those same media elements: great photography, great video, the ability to speak about their unique selling point, but they may not be able to always do that for themselves, to come up with the best setting for talking about their work, or for displaying their product, or for sharing the backstory of their restaurant. So I started in 2019 as a solopreneur, working to do those things for local media, and working with you as well. And it's been great. It's been really fun. I've had just a ton of fun creating content for all different kinds of local businesses.
That's awesome. Well, and I know, obviously you've kind of found your passion more in the recent years of capturing people and families and that kind of imagery. But prior to that, you and I did a lot of work together with food, restaurants, restaurateurs. Yeah. Like you said, coffee shops. I know you've also done dessert places, right? And so forth. So tell me a little bit about like what you think makes a good, I guess, media story when it comes to like a restaurant. Like how do they really bring what they do to life in a way that, somebody in the audience or a person can see it, understand it, and be like, yeah, I want to try that.
Yeah, well, it all starts with great imagery. We eat with our eyes. Creating those great images, we are in a day and age, like we just talked about, where everything's accessible. We can create so much. And so there is a substantial amount of imagery you can create just with your phone and have a really great response just from that. If you're looking to elevate that and really attract folks who are a little more discerning, a little more inquisitive, a little more thoughtful about where they're choosing to dine and spend their time, then you're going to want to look into hiring a professional photographer to capture your story. You're going to want to capture your environment first off, like shots of the restaurant, your space,
right.
The dining area, and then also the details that sets you apart. So what does a place setting look like for you? Do you have white linens? Do you have checkered tablecloths? Or do you have old road signs on the walls, or is it the neon lighting, or do you have a chandelier with handmade crystals that was imported from another country? Like, showcasing those details also tells a story. And then of course the food is really the hero of the story that you're telling about your establishment in the best possible light. Is your location more of an evening spot where people want to be romanced by their setting and by their food? Well, maybe you're going to want a type of style that is more dark and moody and lends itself to the feelings of elegance and just has more of a sleek feel to it. Or are you a cafe or a breakfast place, and you're looking for people to feel energized after they eat your food or experience your restaurant? So you may want to consider photographing your food and your establishment like in the daytime when you've got lots of natural light pouring through, you've got bright, beautiful, clean plates being shown.
Yeah, and it is those cues, right? I mean, I think that's where, I've worked with a lot of restaurants, and they'll take a picture and it's in the dark, or it's, not well lit, or it's at an angle where the food looks mushy, or, it just doesn't really emphasize the dish in the way that you want to convey it. And I think that is part of the piece that I think a lot of restaurateurs could benefit from, is understanding, like, if you want to convey a certain time or a certain occasion that you're eating, like, you need to capture that dish in that sort of same vein. If you're talking about breakfast, it should be in natural light, it should be clean. Maybe, if it's a fast type of restaurant, then you might want to be presenting it in a way that comes across as you can eat and go. If you do all takeout, you probably should be capturing your food and your takeout packaging and how it's going to be consumed, right? And if it's at night, you want to capture that ambiance of the experience, if you are trying to convey that in your story as what you deliver, right? So I think that is a great call out, is that's the piece of the story, and the photography has to do some heavy lifting to showcase that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And heavy lifting is a great word for it, because I would emphasize that some of that can be done with the cell phone, and your cell phone photos can take you to a certain level, but at the point that you are looking to really, really, really attract folks and make a statement with your establishment, with your food, you've got to hire a professional to do that heavy lifting, to think through those pieces for you.
Right. Right. Yeah, and so we talk a lot about the storytelling. Like, I want to encourage restaurateurs to help tell that story, right? You do have the capability. Your cell phone is incredibly powerful. It can get great pictures. You can do a great job with it. And there's a place for that. Social, organic type of content where you do have sort of that less professional, finished look and feel, that makes a ton of sense there. But there are times where you need that finished look and feel. And there is a balance between, having professional shots, having a very steady influx of content that you can take with yourself. And then there's also, of course, a whole nother element of videography, right? That takes it one step further. And, you're doing video of what this experience is all about. But yeah. So I know you have a pretty spectacular camera and setup. Like, so tell us a little bit about like what you do when you're going to go take a shot of a restaurant or a food shot, and kind of what your thought process is and the things that you're thinking about, and what how you're planning. So you actually capture what you want to get, because that just go taking a picture randomly typically doesn't get it. There is some pre-planning and, some strategic execution that probably should be done for every photo shoot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the number one thing I think of is the brand. Do they have a brand kit? What is their mission? Who is their target audience? Are they they targeting folks again who are coming late in the evening? They want to be romanced by their food, or is this a breakfast place? They're catering to moms on the go with little kids everywhere. All of that factors in into the way that you portray the food and the pieces the elements that you line up with it to be shot. But yeah, so I think about that. Their target audience, their mission, their favorite dishes. What are some of the most popular items? We want to make sure that we capture those, because if you don't have high quality images of that, well, you're really, you're doing yourself a disservice.
For sure. And there should be a lot of those, right? I would encourage every restaurant to have a picture of every item you have, because just having a picture by your menu item on your website increases the odds of someone ordering online exponentially. Doing that period, but then those items that you're really known for, those most popular items, or the items maybe that set you apart from your competition, like those are the ones, right, to lean in on and to really work to get those awesome shots that convey what really sets those apart.
Yes, for sure. And then I want to know too, so how many dishes are on your menu? Do we need photos of all of them? What are your most popular ones? So I make sure that I can spend some extra, attention to detail on those. I like to create a shot list for what we need, because in the time that we're there, I might fire off 200 shots, and I want to make sure that they're that we're getting the right content we need. Also, what is the lighting like? Can we use natural light? Do we need, flash? What's kind of your favorite? Like, are you trying to use natural light when possible? I find food looks amazing, right? And really good natural light. I love natural light. I really do. It's it's beautiful. It just it's natural, God-given element here that we have to work with, and we can shape it and bounce it and make it move around our food in the way that we want it to. It's very clean, as opposed to what you might find in some restaurants where you have mixed lighting. A lot of times I'll see a restaurant photographing a piece of food near like a yellow light, either like a warming, there's light from the bar that's kind of reflecting onto the food. And that our brains, when our brains see mixed lighting, our brains have to think harder to interpret the image. And if we're thinking harder, it's not going to be appealing for us to look at, and we're not going to want to, it's not something that we're immediately, our biological reaction is going to say, I want to eat that. No, our brain is like, what is this?
What's going on with that thing, right? Why is that pork chop pink?
Yes. Is it supposed to be pink?
Right.
Yeah, so we've got to, it's something to consider too when I'm photographing. Am I going to have to block off that light? Do I need to tell them to shut off the hot pink? One time we were filming at Texas Roadhouse, and there was a hot pink light, literally like hot pink lights all along this wood grain wall, which reflected the hot pink into the environment. And so we had to tape off all that hot pink because we couldn't shut off just that zone.
Right. But it's good. And that's a really great call out though, because there is a steady, so because of the way media is, there's a steady stream of need for content. Like, it's just always a need, right? Especially if you're trying to engage people on social and so forth. So if a professional like yourself will look for those things, but if you're taking your own pictures for your own restaurant, you need to keep that in mind too. Like that's got to be part of what you do, because if you put something out there, even if it's on social where people are anticipating that maybe it isn't done by a professional, it's still gonna, to your point, have repercussions of, what's wrong with that item, or it just doesn't look that appealing. And if you're putting out content just to put out content and it doesn't have any refinement to it to ensure that it really is kind of putting that best foot forward appeal, it can come back to haunt you, I think, a lot of times.
Absolutely. Yeah, your chef, your lead kitchen staff, everybody's working so hard to make that product and make sure that it looks great for the patron on their plate. Well, if you're trying to attract people who aren't in your store, you've got to make sure that looks great on online, that it's going to translate and just really look phenomenal and clean with the right photography setup. So you can hire a professional, and sure, we think about all of those things, but you can also do it yourself if you're not at a place where you're able to hire a professional. Get yourself a spot in your space, in your restaurant, and have your own studio setup. Have a mini studio setup where you can create a clean lighting environment, have a consistent background, put your camera on a tripod, whether it's a phone or whether it's a cell phone, have it on a tripod so that you've got a consistent angle. You don't have to worry about, shaking or whatnot. Find a great light source. That is my number one recommendation. We just talked about natural light. Natural light is a wonderful, absolutely free light source for you. Find a big giant window that's got.
On that note, though, I think we might want to call out: don't do the direct light. There's nothing worse than some of those pictures. I mean, I know you've seen them where you've got like the noon sun hitting a food item, and it looks terrible. You're like, first of all, the food item would not taste good after being in that heat for very long, but it just looks bad.
The French fries look like they've been through a scorched earth. Yeah, so you want to find, not direct, hard light, but look for a great light source, like a big window that has filtered light. If need be, you can even put up like a soft, I've seen people use a shower curtain to kind of soften that light, which is also very cheap. Or you can just wait until it's maybe evening and then the sun isn't coming in as harsh. It all depends on your location and your setting, which, a photographer would think about all of these things. But if you're working solo and trying to, create your own content, which is totally, an accessible thing to do, you have to be the one thinking of these things. So the other thing that would help create a clean photo of your dish is to bounce some light into it. So you head to the Dollar Tree and go get $1, they're not even $1 anymore, $1.25 a piece of poster board.
Right.
And have
a white one at that, by the way, right?
One,
yeah, don't get a color because then it's gonna come off as a color.
Right, because then you're gonna we don't want pink pork chops or pink mashed potatoes or anything. We want white, just clean white, God-given light streaming through your window, and then we've got white poster board. So then you've created like a small studio for yourself, essentially, just with free window light and a $1.25 bounce card that will push and lift the shadows of your food. So if you've got what's like a tall item, or like a
taco
like a
standing up, or or hamburger that's really thick.
You've got a thick hamburger, and you want to. It can create a shadow if you're dealing with just light that comes from overhead. You can have some shadows that kind of fall under the burger and make it look a little not as refined.
Yeah, not as appealing.
But if you've got a white bounce card on this side, it will lift up those shadows and just kind of breathe some life into the image. So those two things, or three things really alone, can really serve to elevate you. Free natural window light that's not too harsh, $1.25 bounce card, and have your camera on a tripod, which they've got tripods for $20 on Amazon or Office Depot or.
Right, for sure. No, that's awesome advice. It's awesome advice. And like obviously staging your shoots where you have, various things in the frame itself is important, right? Do you have any thoughts on that when you're talking about, like, I'd love to hear what you like to do in your shoots as a professional, and then what you kind of recommend if somebody was doing it themselves. I know personally, I've had clients who will provide me with collateral, and some of it I'll see pictures and I can see stuff in the background that I'm assured that they do not want shown, like old mops leaning up against the wall, or ashtray, or old cups that have been drank out of, or dirty silverware, or something, rag. And it happens so innocently, right? You see a great picture, or you see a food item, you take a picture, you think the food item, and you forget to look behind it. You forget to look, but when somebody's looking at it, they'll notice that stuff. So I was just curious on, staging and kind of what your favorite techniques are for yourself, and any recommendations you might have for someone who, if they were trying to do it themselves, what to keep an eye out for or what to consider?
Yeah, so you've either got to find a great background or create one. If you're going to find a great background, you are going to have to pay attention to those details that are existing. Mm-hmm. So what do we've got in the background? We've got a kitchen sink. That's not a great background. Find a different one that we have.
And I see that a lot on those kitchen shots, right? You want to capture the chef sauteing and it looks amazing, but then, there's 10 things in the background. You're like, oh man, I don't know. The sauteing shot is overshadowed by, all the dirty pans in the sink and behind it or something,
Yeah, for sure. So it's important to be super mindful of that. And again, when you hire a professional, we're constantly looking for that, like making sure that those distracting elements are not there.
Well, I feel like with a professional, you guys have it already planned out. It's like you show up the day. I mean, that is the beauty of it, right? Is there's a certain amount of content you might be creating on your own with your own cell phone and so forth. I always encourage anyone I've worked with to invest in good photography. It is worth its weight in gold. You can use it on your website, you can use it in social, but it sort of becomes your standard piece. And then all the content you're creating on your own is fueling the fire and the drip marketing that's happening on your social and so forth. But without that really reliable, awesome photography, you're starting at a tough place. Like, Erica, you mentioned earlier, people buy with their eyes, like they eat with their eyes. That's the first way that you're going to get someone to be like, yeah, I want to come to this restaurant. I want to eat their food. I want to try them.
Yeah, absolutely. Investing in that, I call it like landmark content because it's sort of your or flagship
evergreen.
Content.
Yeah.
It serves so many purposes that can print, online, social, and it is worth its weight in gold. And like you said, the rest of it can kind of just feed the machine. That more user generated content can feed the machine. Even in those user generated pieces though, like if you have someone from your kitchen staff creating something, you've got to make sure that's clean as well. Like we're talking about, like, make sure the background is not distracting. One thing I like to do is to take the food and to move to the front of the house. So if it's like a cafe, for instance, we've got a lot of windows in the front of some cafes, or if they're in a strip or some business strip or something, they've just got big windows in the front. Bring that food to the front, put it on the table that's closest to the door, and then when you shoot your picture at, say, like f4. So you can adjust this in an iPhone. A lot of the portrait mode, you're able to adjust the f-stop, which determines how deep your background is going to be exposed and how much it's going to be blurry. So if you shoot around f4, f5, and you're far enough away so that those tables and the register and all that is just, maybe a good 50 feet back, it's going to throw out all that background. Your beautiful window light's going to come onto your waffle, your French fry, or whatever it is, your steak and your steak and eggs breakfast, whatever it is. And then the back is going to be dark. So our eyes are immediately going to go towards the brightest spot in the photo, which would be the food that has the beautiful natural light on it. Yeah. And we're not going to look so much at what is in the background because it's, number one, it's blurred out because of the f-stop you shot at. And then number two, it's just darker because the window light isn't reaching that far back. So you've created a great picture for, with just a little bit of preparation.
That's awesome. That's fantastic advice. That's fantastic. And I think I changed topics before I moved off of that. What is that kind of your favorite go-to is front of restaurant, or any other things that you've shot that you're like, this is such a great place to be shooting? I mean, I know I've done a few where you have to be careful. Again, you have to take a look, but doing it if you have a really great bar and it has a nice backdrop of bottles, or just and good lighting where it kind of almost like the bottles are illuminated, those can be really interesting shots. I think I've seen you do some shots on various bars as well. But yeah, what kind of other backgrounds would you suggest, or what do you like to do?
So I do like like I said, bringing the food really to the front of the house and, having that thrown out background. I love some bar shots. I love me some good bar shots with the food there. And then you've got the beautiful, the glasses. Typically there's some uplighting on bars, and you can capture some of that. it can also be the bar top, provided you're able to have clean white light on the food item. And then your background can be those, those glowing lights from the bar.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so I think, we've gone through a lot of good things. Any other like tips or advice when it comes to photography? I mean, obviously, planning, figure out a shot list, think through where you're going to be taking these pictures, what you actually are trying to convey in the pictures is important. Being stringent on making sure your background and everything around you is clean and clear and good. Lighting is probably, I feel like, one of the biggest defining things. Is there anything else? I mean, the one thing I can think of is just light on the sauces, people. Light on the sauces. I don't know if you've ever, I know you've run into this where and by the way, that's not the same advice when you're serving a dish, right? You might be heavy on the sauces, and the sauce is what is just delicious and people love. But when it comes to pictures, I do find when there's too much dressing or too much sauce, it almost drowns the dish, and it covers all the unique ingredients and so forth. So I always say light on those. And then I have done in the past some spritzing of certain things where you might spray it a little bit with oil or water to give it that sort of glistening. But I don't know, do you have any tricks or trades for that one?
Yeah, I agree on be easy on the sauces. You think of your food as the hero of the story, and we want to know what the hero is made out of. We want to be able to see the smaller parts of them. We want to know, where it's come from, what it's done, and so when you put a big giant pile of sauce on something that really covers the whole.
It's just kind of drowning in there. You're like, what's under that stuff?
Right? Yeah, and the mention about the spritzing. Yes, I agree. So. Sometimes I'll take butter, like melted butter, and put it like on a steak or something to just give it a little bit of highlight. It makes it come alive again. It works good on chocolate. I had to do that for a shoot with some chocolate chip cookies. The chips were kind of old, and I just brushed them with butter, and then they're they were reborn. Yeah, these chocolate chips were reborn.
Yes.
And that it was, it's little things like that make a difference. What's another one for burgers? Using pins in your burgers to hold things in place, like holding a piece of lettuce at a certain angle. You're not going to want to eat it, but you're not supposed to eat it. But using not even toothpicks, because toothpicks can be too thick, but they're pins.
Tiny, truly pins. Yeah. Well, and I've also seen quite often you'll go and. If you're doing a professional shoot, right, you'll go and you'll tell them what to make. They'll go make it in the kitchen and they bring it out as if it's for a meal. And there are times you want things steaming or heat coming off of it or whatever. But for the most part, a lot of times in a shoot, you don't really want that heat, especially if there's ingredients like a slice of lettuce or two on top of it, because the heat then just makes it melt, wilts, and it looks yucky. And so forth. So, keep in mind that this is for photography and not for, eating. And, it's quite often wise to cook ahead of time, let it cool down, and then put the ingredients on after. So that way, those items that you want to look really fresh and crisp and delicious, they actually maintain and look that way versus being, wilted and whatnot by the heat within minutes.
There are some crazy food styling hacks out there, and I haven't employed a lot of them, but I've seen them or heard them being done. Like you can put hairspray on lettuce to keep it to keep it crisp.
Yep.
Or I've seen in a pancake commercial using motor oil instead of actual maple syrup, or in a cheese commercial. I know, but it looks so real. You're like, oh,
it looked great, right?
Motor oil. That's motor oil.
Yeah.
You wouldn't actually
don't know to eat this.
You wouldn't actually want it on your food. But yeah, so there's some crazy styling hacks out there that they can just really become otherworldly. But for the sake of what our restaurant owners might be trying to employ in-house, the things that you talked about and the things that we're both really sharing here, I think hopefully are helpful. Like just putting the cold ingredients on separately.
For sure.
Using pins and props, like I've used little wooden blocks sometimes just to
lift
prop things up at a certain angle so it can be seen.
And if you're doing a table shot, you wouldn't have all the items nearby on a table, but for a table shot in a picture, a lot of times you're going to push things closer than they would actually be, and so there's an interest in the overall look and feel of the table versus a bunch of wide open space that has nothing sitting on it. So I always tell people, keep in mind what you're doing and why you're doing it. It's not supposed to be the actual meal. It's supposed to resemble the meal and what you serve, but in its best light for photography, right? Mm-hmm. So you've obviously worked with lots of restaurants, you've worked with lots of businesses. Can you tell me maybe one of your favorite customers or clients that you've worked with for photography?
Yeah, so one of my favorite experiences working with a client is getting to work for a chocolate / crepe shop. And getting to not only handle their food photography, but also do some marketing for them. It was a wonderful experience. They make crepe. They also sell tons of European chocolates. And so getting to take pictures of piping hot chocolate being poured all over fresh crepe, or getting to, film strawberries being dipped in chocolate for Valentine's Day. It was so much fun. And every time I walked into that shop to film or to take pictures, it was just like walking into a confectionery heaven. There was a smell of grilling vanilla waffles, across the entire space. And coffee being made, and there was a lot of moms who were there with their kids, and it's just such a happy place to be and take pictures. And at the very end of it, of course, I got to take everything home and eat it. So that was a
bonus. Yeah, no, I remember seeing some of those pictures, and I'm sure we're going to show some. But yeah, amazing work. And I remember when you were working with that client, that was pretty awesome.
That was wonderful. Yeah, it's great. Very memorable time.
Nice. All right. Well, this has been awesome, Erica. You are a wealth of knowledge. I would love to, do you want to tell us a little bit more of what you're doing now and where people can find you if they're interested in what you're doing and so forth? Can you kind of leave us with that?
Yeah. So I do both commercial and I do family work. So on the commercial side, I work for businesses doing headshots, food photography, video production, just kind of a handful, really the gamut of things. Ideal client is folks who know that they need to up-level their content. They've done all the cell phone work. They've done, they've had the high schooler come in and take pictures with their brand new camera or whatever, but they're really looking to elevate and to have something that's consistent.
The wow factor too is what you give. Your food photography is great. People see it, they go, wow, that looks amazing, I'm going to go there. I mean, that's kind of the whole goal, right? And that's what you give.
Yeah, exactly. And then on my family side in 2022, I work with you to help me create a Foxtail Family Photography, create the branding behind that business. And I work with families who are in the Northwest Houston area who are looking to capture memories of around the holidays, or for special events like graduations, birth announcements, maternities, things like that. Yeah. That was really birthed from me giving birth. I had my first daughter was born 4 years ago, and I just had my second baby 10 months ago, and so I delved a lot more into family work and really enjoyed people who are in the same season of life as I am in, and built a brand around that. So it's been a lot of fun. So I'm at Foxtail Family Photography on Instagram and on Facebook. And then for my commercial work, I'm at ericahernandezmedia.com.
All right. Well, awesome. Erica, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I'm so thrilled you were my first guest. You're the easiest person, and you are such a gem when it comes to doing this kind of thing, as well as just what you do. You're awesome at it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a blast. Anytime I get to just, share what I know and help others to learn more and get better at what they do, I'm totally down. I really have enjoyed this time. Thank you so much.